Welcome into the DNVR Avalanche podcast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Use code DNVR when you sign up for a new account to get amazing odds boosts every single day. Of course, over the weekend, we lost forever announcer for the Colorado Avalanche, Peter McNab. Now that Jesse is back in town, we figured we'd all get together and reminisce and feel good about the life that he had. So, yeah, it's obviously extremely sad that he's no longer with us, but also a lot of good memories around Peter McNab's time with the Avalanche.
I don't know if you guys saw the just the quick little video the Avs put out. I mean, pretty much same day, just a couple hours after, and Kyle Keefe was narrating the video, and I thought the way he ended it was great. The saying, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened." And he said, "I think we're going to do a lot of both when it comes to talking about Peter McNab." And yeah, I think that's definitely the case, Rudo. I think you said it right. Like, it's, you want to celebrate the stuff that he did and what he was a part of. But I mean, I'm still genuinely in shock over all of it. And we were sitting in a hotel room in Finland, and I was just kind of casually scrolling my phone, and I scared the other people that were there with me, because I just so reactionary to what I saw. I'm still like trying to just process that what actually happened. And I don't want to make this sound like I was going over to Peter McNab's house every night and all that stuff, but I mean, for 20 something years. I mean, he was in everyone's house.
Yeah.
Half the year, every other night. Yeah, I seriously can't believe it still.
Yep. It's definitely tough. Those things always come sort of as a surprise. I mean, obviously we knew he was dealing with cancer, but nonetheless, seeing him on television the week before, I think everyone was a little bit caught off guard by it. And obviously, number one, I hope their family is doing okay. Hope everyone is sending them good vibes and, helping them out as much as possible, because that's what really matters. But yeah, as far as Peter goes, like, genuinely has never been a time where the Avs have not been broadcast by that dude. So yeah, he's always been part of the community, always been a great dude. I didn't know him as well as some of you guys did, for sure, but every time I've ever interacted with him, he's been extremely friendly. He's one of the good people, for sure.
Yeah, I think it's been really reflected, the legacy that he leaves behind in the outpouring, or not just from Avalanche fans, not just from people here in Colorado, but around the league. You're talking about, I've watched 3 or 4 different games in which they openly had conversations about him, and we're talking about what a great guy he was, and that big laugh that he had, and the way that he just kind of brought joy to the rink with him every day, and his passion not only for the game but for the people in it, and how he just wanted the best for everybody, and he wanted the game to be as good as possible. I have so many interesting Peter McNab memories where getting into the media world, when I did, the one person that I learned the most about and came to appreciate the most, between just listening to him on TV and then spending time with him in person, was definitely Peter McNab, because he, I know that back in the day there were times that he could frustrate during broadcasts, because he always had such great stories to tell. and he'd be telling stories while the game was going on, and then you spend time with him in person and you realize he just tells stories. Like, he was just a great storyteller, and he had so many of them. And he just wanted to share that passion for the game with everybody around him. And he was, I don't know, it's only good. I couldn't think of there isn't a single negative thing that I can associate with Peter McNab. He was just the kindest person, and the most genuine, and you always felt like when he was giving you attention that your time was being respected, that he was actually locked in on what you were talking about. And in a world where like that's really hit or miss when we have conversations with people, you never really know, they're checking their phone, they're doing something else, or whatever. It feels like we're all multitasking all the time. But when you sat and had a conversation with Peter McNab, he was focused on you, and that was it was easy to get lost in conversation with that guy.
Well, I think it's an interesting, because a lot of the conversation that I've seen, is a lot of people talking about that he's been here from the beginning, and there was someone in the chat, I've seen this phrase used a few times: you can't tell the story of the Avalanche without talking about Peter McNab, and it is an interesting testament to his character that in their 27-year history of the Avalanche, they've had 3 different play-by-play announcers, and it's not that any of them were bad people or anything like that, but they were just at different points in the team's history, the broadcast history. They felt like they needed fresh voices, and hey, we need a new look, a new sound, something else. But there was a consistent there with Peter McNab. That was something that nobody ever felt needed to be changed, wanted to be changed. That no matter what different personalities were up there with him, that was the one person that fans, producers, people behind the scenes actually doing the broadcast. And then to the point that you made, AJ, about just some of this outpouring that you've seen outside of Colorado, other broadcasters, everyone wanted, nobody wanted to see Peter McNab leave that booth. It's so funny. I'm not going to reiterate too much of what you just said there, AJ, but this industry is so funny because you meet a lot of people who have been in it for a long time. It's, why wouldn't you want to be, right? It's a great industry. We're very lucky to be able to, be in this situation where we get to be around hockey and these athletes and things like that every single day. But what I've learned is that there's a lot of people who this industry can kind of make them jaded. And after doing it for a long time, they really kind of take it for granted, being there every day and how lucky we are to actually do this. And again, AJ, like you said, you get into conversations with them, and it's not that they're bad people or whatever, but they're like, yeah, I've been around the rink a lot, whatever. I'm kind of half doing this. I'm half talking to you, half doing that. And that was one of the first things that I remember really learning about Peter McNab when I got into this industry, is how much he actually cares. And he didn't tell those stories in the booth. He didn't continue doing the job. He didn't go to practice every single day because he had to. And it was just the paycheck. He did it all because he genuinely wanted to. And beyond the want, he genuinely cared about the people, not only on the ice, on the team, but everything that went on around with that. And so my first season, where I was going to practice as a member of the media, was the 16-17 season, the 48-point year. And yeah, tough year to be around the team. And again, AJ, like you said, people they would at times get frustrated with him on the broadcast because he'd tell these great stories, even during that season where he'd be putting such a positive spin on things during these games when everyone just kind of felt bad about most things that were going on. And what I remember learning so quickly is he would never throw any of those guys under the bus, but he had very real feelings about what was happening with the team and behind the scenes and what the players were doing. And it was all from a place of like, he cared so much. He wanted to see them do well so badly. And some of the first conversations I had with him at practice, very critical of what was happening on the ice and, pointing to guys like, look at this, look at him coasting there. You're in practice. You've lost 5 games in a row and you can't get out. And I just remember sitting there realizing like, oh man, he's really dialed into this and he really understands what's happening, but he's such a good dude that he's not going to bury any of these guys on the broadcast. And I just remember, again, not that I, sat there and had these hour-long conversations with him every day, but I tried really hard to listen to him and just sit near him and pick his brain when I could. Because he had so much knowledge and so much love and passion for what was happening that, again, just to kind of reiterate it, he didn't do this job for 20 plus years because he felt like he needed to, or he had to, and it was a burden to him. He did it because he loved it and he loved the players and, he loved the management and the coaches and such a smart guy that it was just a pleasure to be around him, even if you weren't directly involved in the conversation with him. And again, just a testament to all that. AJ, you called me yesterday and we talked just very briefly about some of this. And, I told you, I was in Europe for 13 days, I think all told. So 2 weeks ago today I left, and the day before I left, Peter McNab was at practice, with notebook in hand and talking to everyone there and, analyzing what's happening on the rink and come to find out.
Do you have his briefcase?
I think I'm sure he did. I mean, he had it every other time I saw him. And his white New Balances untied. And it's just, I think that's part of the reason why this was so shocking was I saw him 2 weeks ago and he was in as good a spirits as he's ever been, as he always was. And, you come to find out that maybe he kind of knew a lot of this was going on behind the scenes. And, he spent his final days being as involved as he possibly could. And if that's not the ultimate, testimony, I guess maybe is the right word of who he was and just how much he cared and loved this community. I don't know what else is. And Avalanche hockey just it won't be the same ever. And that was going to be true whether it be him retiring in however many years or this being the horribly unfortunate outcome. When Peter McNab left, it was never going to be the same, and it's too soon that things have changed like this. And I'm very grateful that I got to have any level of conversation interaction with him, let alone the amount that we were very lucky to have being in the position that we are. And it's going to be really weird, and it's going to be a long adjustment period to get used to just not seeing him around.
Practice won't be anywhere near the same because didn't matter if the team was good or bad. Peter was one of the only guys that showed up to practice to actually watch practice.
Yep.
Because at the media, among the media, people either would not come to practice, like they, outlets were not regularly there, or the ones that were there would show up and they would see who's on the ice that day, tweet out the lines or whatever, and then stop. Like that was they were done. It was now time to socialize. It was time to do whatever. And Peter was just the guy that would he was there to watch practice, and he would talk about what was going on and just be actively involved in it. And that was, for me, my first couple of years on the beat, that was a godsend for me because the team was so bad that most media outlets in Denver weren't bothering to come. It was us. It was Mile High Sports when JJ was there. It was Denver Post, with Chambers or Terry Fry, and then Dater. Off and on, depending on where he was working at the time. But it was like that was about it. It was like 4 of us, and then occasionally like Rycroft and Kyle Keefe and Mosher, the altitude guys were also pretty regular faces there. But every day, Peter McNab, always, no doubt about it, briefcase with his notebook, and he would go and sit and chat with players, and he was just the kindest and most polite guy, and like did not have to give me the time of day. It was the media room has changed a lot now, but when I was first in there, it was a lot tougher go for me to be accepted and respected and all that. And he was really the first person that was just like, "Oh, you want to talk about hockey? Great, let's talk about hockey." And we would just sit and chat about the game. We would watch practice together and talk about players. And I remember there's actually a comment that got made in chat. Yaya, can you put A Wolf's comment up on the screen? That's the one. Because this is very correct. I remember as being an analytics person, getting into the game and coming into media, I asked him like early on when I was there. I had asked him what he thought about analytics, and he thought about how the game was changing. And he said, "Look, to be honest, I don't understand all of them. I don't, This is like 5 years ago before analytics became like the basis of so many things. It was still very much in its infancy." He said, "I don't understand all of them, but it's not my game anymore. It's your game. It's your generation's game. It's how it gets evaluated, how it gets viewed, how it gets played. It's a young, it's your guys' generation now. It's your game that we have passed on from what we had. What was valued when I was playing is not the same thing that's valued today across players." And he said, "I'm not here to say one is better than the other. They're just different." And I would go on to learn that is not a common viewpoint. That a lot of the guys that played when he played and are running teams these days don't necessarily feel that way about the game changing and he did not agree with the "well, it's your game now" mentality. It was very much, the gatekeeping is a very natural thing. Well, back in my day, we did it this way and we did it that, and it becomes almost kind of like a bitter thing. And with Peter, it was never that way. He was just, well, the game was just different when I played.
I mean, I think one of the things that is such an indicator of how humble he was is every single time I would have a conversation about Peter with someone else, someone would come out of the word work and they didn't even realize he played hockey, or they didn't even realize how good of a player he was, because I genuinely never heard himself call himself a good hockey player. And this is a guy who scored 800 points in the NHL, had half a dozen point per game seasons with the Bruins, played for Buffalo, Vancouver, and New Jersey as well, I think. Genuinely a hall of very good hockey player. And he called himself a bum all the time.
Yeah, so I actually had a conversation with him about the first year that he broke into the NHL as like a full-time NHLer. And it was right when the Caps had become an expansion team. And he told me that keep in mind what Rudo just said. This guy scored 800 points in the NHL. And he told me that he owed his entire NHL career to the Caps goalies early on when they were winning 9 games a year, and was like, those guys were terrible, right? And he didn't say that. He just said, I owed my career to those guys because it tricked my coach into thinking I was a goal scorer. And he said that his coach at the time came up to him and said, McNabb, you're making the team. I need you to keep scoring goals. Otherwise, you won't stay here. And he started laughing, and he said, he was like, I wasn't a goal scorer. What was this guy thinking? And I looked at him, and I was like, Peter, like, you scored like 400 goals in your career. Like, what do you mean you're not a goal scorer? Like, come on, man. And he was telling me all about, like, that first year. He was just like, look, if I didn't get to play against those guys in the preseason, I wouldn't have made the team. If I didn't get to play against them in the regular season, my numbers wouldn't have looked nearly as good. Like, he insisted that he owed his career to that. And refused to admit that he could score some goals in his day. Refused. And you go and you look at his career, and you're like, you had 800 points in 900 games. You had a better career than 90% of the guys that are going to come through this organization that you've seen. Like, he was just that humble about it, and always talked about himself like he was just a bum of a player. And no, nonsense. It was all nonsense.
Well, the thing that I just kind of want to retouch on is, because I think this is something that just goes with the overall theme of the kindness and just the genuine good person that he was. And it's what you've seen a bunch of people talk about online, and you know, we've told a couple stories here, is that AJ, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, and I just wanted to go back to it when you said that when you were talking to him, he was talking to you. He had nothing else going on, and you know, he didn't sit at practice and tweet and, you know, all kinds of stuff, whatever. He was there to watch, and he was there to talk to people about what he was watching. And it was always so funny because every now and then you'd see some fans go up to him, not realize what a talker he is, to go just say, oh, you know, we love you on the broadcast. And they'd end up in a 15, 20-minute conversation with him because he just loved people and loved people that loved the same thing that he did, which was hockey. And yeah, it's just, I think that's what made him such an amazing broadcaster, and why everybody wanted to listen to him every single night. And going back to what I said a minute ago, of they made 3 different changes now in their play-by-play guy, and it had nothing to do with them being bad play-by-play announcers or bad people or anything, but
yeah,
there were multiple times where, and this happens in every company, every business, where it's like, hey, we need fresh voices. We need to speak someone new. But there was always one consistent, and it was Peter McNab. And I think people shouldn't look at that as some type of coincidence. That has everything to do with who he was and what he meant to this organization. And I'll take it a step further and say that the city and state and the game of hockey, just in general, on the larger scope. And you know, we'll all be poorer for our experience not hearing him going forward, and that's the part that just tears you up. But I'll forever be grateful that I grew up on Peter McNab and calls. And I think one of my favorite, when I think about him and his in-game presence stuff, the one that just sticks out to me in my head is the Patrick Waugh first year as a coach, with that crazy game 1 comeback and overtime win against the Wild. AJ, you mentioned the big laugh earlier. Everyone should go back at some point and watch that Paul Stastny overtime goal. Mike Haynes is calling the goal, and Peter McNab's just laughing over top of it the whole time because he couldn't believe what he just saw. And he when it goes to the replay, before he gets into anything, he says, "This is one of those games that in 10 years you just had to be there." And you could just hear the elation in his voice. And that's just one that will always, always stick out to me when I think of Peter McNab. And like you said, that big bear laugh of his, watching that Avs team celebrate. Yeah, it's going to be a change for sure. Not only not hearing him, but not seeing him around the rink. And I hope his family is seeing this outpouring of love that people have and can take a little bit of solace in that. Man, was he loved by the hockey community and this Avalanche community in particular. And it's not going to be the same without him.
He has ties all over the hockey world. Announced for the Devils for a little while before he came to Colorado. Played at DU. Meghan, I know you haven't gotten any word in yet, so I wanted to open the floor to you if you had anything to say.
I appreciate that. I've been trying to collect my thoughts to say this exactly how I want to, because you've all touched on it a lot too, but he was such a steward for the game of hockey as a whole because of his love for it. And the impact that that's going to have on the culture of hockey is something that I don't want to be understated, because we do talk a lot about the culture. And there's something that I really want to point out about Peter that stood out to me. And it's hard to articulate this well, but when you are a woman in this industry, you just pick up on people who validate you being in this space immediately, effortlessly, unconsciously do this. They just treat you as an equal and a colleague from the jump. And I think this is something that Peter has done well throughout all of his career. It's motivated by this passion for hockey and wanting this sport to grow and be accessible to even more people. And so he embraces everybody who wants to love hockey just as hard as he loves hockey. And I'm really heartbroken that my first year in this industry was his last, because you could just feel that. And it's really important to have people like Peter in the sport. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's how we all feel.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Like me, it had a really big impact just sharing a bench with him in family sports as he furiously jotted down notes in practice. There's a smile on his face and not a look of confusion like, what is this woman doing here? And that meant a lot to me.
Yep.
I just saw a comment that came through the chat that said, and this is something I genuinely believe, not even just the hockey world, just the world needs more people like the kind of person Peter McNab was.
Yeah.
And I'm someone who I always try to assume that people are well intentioned, especially with the internet now. You meet a lot of people that you disagree with, or that go about things in a different way than you would, whatever it is. And a lot of times, you sit there and, this person means well, but it comes off really, really rough or, kind of abrasive, whatever. It was never in question if Peter McNab was well-intentioned or not. Meghan, and I think you just summarized it really well. He not only was he such an amazingly great person, but he treated everyone else as if they were good people. except for the one guy in the stands for who's in Boston.
Even that guy,
he
if
could
you go back and watch that
beat
video,
the
like,
tires off him, and he didn't.
well, like, he's like holding him down, right? But like, he's not like wailing away on him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Mike Milbury that took his shoe off and beat him with it. But it was like McNabb was like defending his teammate, and even that guy, he like got on top of him and like held him down, and then he was like, "All right, I think we're good. Like, I've made my point." And then
But
Mike Milbury turned it into an all-time great moment. But
yeah, he's like, "I'll help."
Even that guy, he was nice too.
And it was just you never had to question. Is Peter McNabb, does he have good intentions? Is he looking for the best in people? And he treated everyone, fans, members of the media, to your point, Megan, new members of the media. My favorite part of this is all of us have a story that starts with my first year covering the team. And how Peter McNabb, like he talked to you like you'd been around for just as long as he had.
Yep.
And I think, I mean, honestly, we could have stopped and started right there, because I think that encapsulates everything about who Peter McNabb was. It didn't matter if it was your first year around the team or 20th year. He wanted to talk to you because he knew that you had the same passion that he did.
He genuinely, in a sport of hockey where, let's be honest, it's unfortunately a quite gatekeepy sport. There are a lot of fans who believe hockey is theirs and you have to reach a certain status to become part of the community. Peter McNabb wanted everybody to be a hockey fan.
Yeah.
Didn't matter who you rooted for, didn't matter who you were. He wanted you to be part of the community. I think that shows a lot when the NHL does their hockey is for everyone things. There's plenty of stuff that the NHL does, and I believe a lot of those guys truly believe in that stuff, but there aren't very many people going out on the broadcast and talking for multiple minutes about how they want everyone to become a part of this community and how much support McNabb has for that. He really was a champion of the sport as a whole.
If you take anything away, and this may be kind of like the last until someone else says something and it springs a thought. Kind of my last thing on this for right now is, if you take anything away from Peter McNabb, is treat people the way Peter McNabb treated everyone, and you'll be on a pretty good path in life.
Even the guy he was tackling in the stands.
Even the guy he was tackling in the stands.
I will say that in what we do, we spend time around what you would consider like celebrity, like famous people, and they say like not to meet your heroes. I think part of what made Peter a hero in his own right was that he lived up to the billing.
Yeah.
That was not a man that you met and thought, I really wish I hadn't met that person. Like, I will never be able to see that person in the same light that I did before, because there are some people in the hockey world that I feel that way about. And damn you, Megan.
To do this.
Peter was one of the people that, when I think about my time in this industry and I think about being around the game and the people that I've met, he's one of the ones that I'm most thankful that I got to spend time with. And hearing about Ray Bork crushing a sushi bar and how the Devils helped Scott Niedermayer develop as a prospect, and the bust that became Pat Falloon, and like just the different stories that I got to be lucky enough to hear over the years, and talking to him at the draft when they drafted Cale Makar, and him being like, I think they got a special guy here, and being nailed it. And just all the time spent with him, I'm very thankful that
he told so many stories. He spent so much time as a storyteller that I don't think not everybody fully appreciated, to what AJ was kind of alluding to there, what a smart hockey guy Peter McNab was, and just at what level he understood the game in general and what was happening right in front of him. That, like I said, he was so great with, you know, the words and the stories, and he always had something funny and interesting to say that I'm not sure if people quite understood.
The thing is, and he's a great storyteller, perfect color commentator in that way, but he was also an announcer that absolutely understood the moment.
Yeah.
Playoff overtime, that dude wasn't telling any stories. He was locked in on the ice, and everyone shared the Kadri call on Twitter over the last couple of days. There were 4 people in that building that knew that puck was in the net: Bone Byram, those 2 fans, and Peter McNab.
Yeah, those 2 fans.
It really, when you pay close attention, you really start to understand how much of the game Peter McNab saw, because he really was that guy. Played it, broadcast it, understood it on an incredibly deep level, to a point that I'm not even sure I fully understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just going to basically repeat a bunch of stuff Rudo just said, but he's spot on. Well, and then my favorite part, like you said, Rudo, about him understanding the moment, my favorite Peter McNab stuff was when you just hear him kind of like marveling at what was happening. And usually it was, you know, like the emotions of the players and stuff like that. But yeah, when he didn't have much to say, and you could just kind of hear him taking it all in and appreciating it. That was those were always the really special moments, because again, just taking it all the way back to one of the first things I said, you could just you could feel how much he loved and cared about everything related to this team, organization, community, pick a word. It meant everything to him. So,
you know, one of the things that he started doing later on in his career that I really appreciated a lot was the appreciation of opposing team players, and not necessarily being so pro Avs all the time that it was like, Sidney Crosby, that guy's a bum, but being like, this guy is like Sidney Crosby, right? Like there were no words for him. And I know it got on the nerves of some Avs fans, because like when things are not going well in the game and Peter McNab is like, how great is this guy? You're like, shut up, Peter. Like, we don't want to hear it,
we've seen
man.
him score 3 times. We know.
Right. Like, we understand, bro. He's really good. But I really did love that he just loved the game so much that he was just like, look, this guy's great. I know that he's torching the Habs right now, but let's also take some time to appreciate this guy is great.
Yeah.
And it was the thing he started doing in the last few years, and I really did appreciate that, because there are some really good hockey players around the league, not in Colorado. And his passion for the game and his passion for just good hockey players just really came through when he was going on about, you know, Jonathan Quick hasn't given up a goal against the Avalanche in 7 years, and you're just like, yeah, okay, cool.
The 2 players that I remember he loved to watch because of what you're talking about, AJ. It was Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, and I remember there'd be times where it'd be really funny, because Patrick Kane would like he'd try something that wouldn't work, and Peter McNab would like exactly what you're saying, AJ. Oh my gosh, if that could have gotten through. And your knee jerk would be like, okay, well, it didn't work, so why are you marveling at it? And then you'd watch like a reverse angle replay of it, and you'd be like, holy smokes, that was an unbelievable play that missed by this much. And he would catch it in real time. and just kind of marvel at it. But those were two guys that I always remember. He really appreciated like the fine, pointed details of their game.
The exasperated way when something like that would happen, and he'd just go, Mosh.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so funny. Oh my God. Yeah. Won't be the same without him for sure. And there's nothing you can say. There's not enough that we can say about who he was, and grateful that I got to be a part of it from the standpoint of I grew up listening to him every single night. Got to spend the last couple of years around him. And so, you hear about stuff all the time, for us in sports of, whether it be a player or a broadcaster or a coach or something, they're like, oh, wow, one of the all-time greats. So lucky to see them, to have been around when they were in their heyday or whatever. And I think Peter McNab will go down as one of the all-time great color commentators in the sport. And I'm just very lucky that not only did I get to hear him, but for so long and get to know him a little bit, to the level that I did. Just I'll be forever grateful of all that.
Yep.
Going to be a tough job for whoever fills
it's a
that
tough
role.
Place.
So I was talking about it the night it happened. I imagine that altitude probably goes the rest of the year, just with kind of a cycle someone in and out. And then probably next year is when they'll officially put someone there, but I'm shoes to fill.
I'm assuming that Rycroft will just step into that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have a few super chat comments to get to. Is Yaya slacking?
He's crying.
Yeah.
$5 from Jacob, who said he literally was just calling a game and not that long ago. Really makes you think about the ones you love. I love you guys. Let's get the dub for Peter. Yep.
Tomorrow's gonna be take the words out of my mouth.
$2 for the Pin
tomorrow's
King.
gonna be an emotional night.
Yep. Emotional game tomorrow night. Tomorrow night even against a divisional rival. Yep. $10 from our Moisters. Peter was welcomed into our home for 27 years, 82 times a season. His analysis made me the fan I am today. I'm so thankful to be able to listen to his knowledge and learn about his amazing character.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. Nothing but love all the way around for sure.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
Definitely will be sorely missed. Not just in Avs circles, but in hockey.
Yeah, I think listening to the other broadcasts around the league and them going out of their way to bring him up and talk about him, and you could just hear the impact that he had on so many people. He was so well loved.
Dude, Condoleezza Rice sent out a tweet yesterday about it.
That was a little out of left field, wasn't it?
Right. And I thought that was a great. Say it again.
She was a Denver Pioneer, I think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. DU alum, and it was like, I'm totally with you, AJ. I saw that and I was like, what? But it was really just kind of a great example of how far-reaching his impact truly was, and again, like, we heard him every single night, so I think we kind of took it for granted that what a special person and presence he was, and I think the outpouring you've seen over the last, I apologize, guys. I've been in so many different time zones in the last couple of days. I don't know what day it was. 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that outpouring you've seen kind of tells you everything about who Peter McNab was.
Yep. Any final thoughts from anybody?
It's not a good idea.
Yeah, there's Av stuff that we can just bank.
We deal with that on Thursday before the game or Friday or whatever.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. This is Peter's show.
Yep. Simple as that. So, okay. We're going to wrap up the show. Hope all of y'all appreciated Peter McNab as much as we did. Hug your loved ones. Cry it out if that's what you got to do. We're going to get out of here. We appreciate all of y'all commiserating with us on the show today. We'll be back tomorrow for the hockey game, pregame, watch along, postgame, all of everything. So we hope to see you there. But until then, talk to you on the next one.
Oh.